Welcome back to the Coruscant Nights podcast. Thanks for joining us. I'm Cooper. My co-host, as always, is Jack. Today, we're discussing episode 3 of The Acolyte. It just came out, and we have not spoken to each other about it. So these are our first thoughts and the first time we're hearing it. If you aren't already following us on social media, please do. It's at Coruscant Nights. That's on Instagram and TikTok. And big special thanks to our patrons who make these videos possible. Ben, Keita, Caleb, Sebi, and John. We all appreciate you very much. All right. So,
Mm.
episode 3 of The Acolyte. Now, just before we get into the discussion, there was kind of notes from people who saw it early that said this was going to be an episode that was going to divide Star Wars fans as if we weren't already divided enough,
Yeah,
and it was
literally.
going to ruin Star Wars and whatever. We'll obviously get into our thoughts on that. But there was a lot of expectations coming into this episode.
Mm.
And I'm curious, Jack, what did you think of the episode overall?
Mm. This is the thing. Overall, I'm going to say it is not a very good episode. And I'm not even talking about Star Wars episode. It is not a good episode of TV in general. The story beats weren't there. I don't want to blame actors, but wow, the acting in this episode was not it at all. I was getting drawn out every single time the twins were on screen with the mother, and all the other witches it just didn't. I was When I was watching it, I was finding myself thinking, what am I doing? Is this Star Wars? I was like, and now I had similar thoughts in Mandalorian season 3, especially, obviously, with all the Jack Black and stuff. However, it still had elements from Star Wars, such as the droids, even. Watching this, I was like, they're just rehashing old storylines, but making it much worse. Let me just quickly say, this twins aspect of them being born from like this other witchcraft or force is just a worse reason, like how Anakin was born. Why are we doing this still? Why is this even needed? That doesn't create any uniqueness or creativity within the franchise or even just this storyline in general. It's such a bland waste of time. This whole episode really made me just disappointed. And I don't want to be. Now, this is the one thing I want to isolate myself from. I don't want to be grouped with kind of the negative Nancy's, as you would say, for like just in general, because people were already hating on the Acolyte even before this episode. So, like you were saying with your comment before, is this going to be the one to like divide fans? Well, not really. It already was divided even with the show being announced and everything. But I think this episode, as a holistic thing, just for the show as a whole, is very poor, very poor. However, I'm still actually very excited for the rest of the episodes coming up. However, this one just did not increase excitement. All it did was just make me go, what? Why was this even like made? Why is this the backstory we're getting? It was so generic. It was so bland. It didn't make sense for the kind of the storyline they want to obviously portray. I was like, why are they using elements from every other media from Star Wars but making it worse? That is my initial thoughts, and I was like, wow.
Okay, interesting.
Mm.
Um, I I kind of agree with some of the things you mentioned. I didn't think it was the best episode that we've seen so far in The Acolyte.
Of
It
course.
felt very, I don't like to use this term very
Mm.
much, but it was quite boring to
Yeah.
watch.
Yeah.
I don't think the whole thing was boring, but there were
No.
points when I'm thinking like,
What the
why are we
hell?
looking at this? And we'll get into specifics in a little bit. But I quite liked the vibe of the coven of the coven of witches, and I feel like because we spent quite a bit of time with them in the episode, that is kind of what's making me a bit 50-50 on this episode
Mm.
because I did like a lot of the things that were present. There were some really cool scenes, some really I know you dogged on the acting before, but I thought there were some pretty good emotional moments in there, I'm not gonna lie. But this
There is, yeah, one scene in particular and characters in particular. I think the acting was good. I don't want to say it was more just like, just quickly put this in here. Master Soul and Osha at the end, very good acting from both of them, perfect. But basically everything else before that,
Okay. I was thinking of a different moment for that acting, but that was a good scene. But yeah, again, I was kind of thinking it kind of I had ideas in my head last week, and
yeah,
I don't know if I mentioned them on the podcast or not, but we can discuss
yeah,
it in a minute. But it kind of almost killed those expectations and those ideas because I
mm,
was thinking, oh, they're gonna go all out, and then it's kind of
yeah,
like, oh, they've kind of dialed back. They're not going all out. What's kind of
yeah,
happening? So
yeah.
yeah, I think overall I am. I think it's a positive episode, but it's not the best episode. I think that it was necessary, but it didn't need to be a 40-minute flashback episode.
See, I don't know. Like, I agree with. See, I don't have the issue with having a backstory flashback episode. I just had an issue with what they actually showed. You know what I mean? Like, this
Yeah.
could have been a very, very good plot heavy episode, right? However, it was heavy, but with what? With random scenes with mothers, and the witches in themselves are just not as cool or even as visually appealing as like the witches of Dathomir. So I'm like, we're getting a whole nother, and they were just using the force willingly. Does all these witches have the force, or is it just witchcraft? Like,
Well,
I
I
hated the opinion. I hated their whole describing of the force and the users. I hated it. It was bad. It was lazy. It was just appalling in my opinion. It wasn't good.
So I disagree. I actually quite liked the idea that, and it's an interesting idea that the Force is not exclusive to the Jedi and the Sith. That was like obviously we've spoken about the Jedi and the Sith using the Force, and the Jedi use it for as an ally, and the Sith use it as power. Whereas I felt like these witches use it as a tool rather than actually being good or bad. It's kind of something that helps them that isn't a part of them. They can kind of summon it. I just thought it was interesting. It was an interesting take on the Force. And I know that Leslie Headland and the cast prior to the show release were talking about how they wanted to explore the different ways of the Force and what the Force is to many other people. So, look, I don't think it's unrealistic that the Force is available to others in the galaxy. I feel like it being so exclusive to these Jedi and Sith. Yeah, I mean that's kind of what we've seen, but it would make sense to exist outside that other um witchcraft or whatever
No,
can
but see, that's
tap into the
witchcraft.
Force.
That's witchcraft. It should be magic and witchcraft. You can't tell me that like not everyone, but like I don't like this idea of a witch cult kind of having this ability to use the force. If anything, it's like the Night Sisters where they use magic and stuff to craft sort of replicas or entities, and like for example, boosting Savage from like a skinny runt into a powerful not Sith, just a force kind of wielder who's just there for like as a mercenary, right? This right here, and especially the chanting scenes, and it was just not good. It was meant to be this majestic kind of build up, and I was sitting in my couch visibly in disgust, and just like who like gave the thumbs up to this. This was appalling. And I'm trying to maintain myself because I'm very angry right now. This is obviously raw emotion straight after the episode. It was really bad. I think this episode was just a bad piece of media in general, not just Star Wars. It was just bad, bad
Wow.
from start to finish.
Wow.
Hmm.
You just mentioned the chanting scene,
That was
and I believe it was
horrible.
called the Ascension.
Ascension. Yeah.
I loved that. That was awesome. I know it felt a bit cheap, I'll agree,
Cheesy
but
as man. Oh my gosh.
but I feel like that's just because we've seen it, like it's a live action thing.
No, but
I
we
don't
saw
know, just the
even
whole vibe and the music and the different movements. I loved it. It was cool. That was one of the best parts of the episode for me. Yeah,
the only redeeming part from this episode was Master Soul and Osha at the end, and also the May and Osha's kind of visual, kind of when Soul was trying to rescue them both. That was literally the only thing I took away from that episode was, oh yeah, that's how it happened. That's why he thought she was dead. But and they didn't even show us how the witches died, which is obviously obvious to us. I'm assuming it was a Jedi because they're like, oh, they're posing a threat. We have to do something about this. However, once again, they're trying to keep this mysteriousness within it. I'm like, come on, just show us, man. Why are we going to go back and flash back again later just to see something we already expect to happen? Like,
yeah,
this is what my issue is. This flashback episode was meant to show this grand, thing building up for why May's evil and Osha's been very upset about this, and all the Jedi and even Master Torben was like, what? We didn't see anything. Like it was
exactly.
nothing at all. What the hell was this 40 minutes? It was a waste of my time, a waste of my day, and a waste for Star Wars. It
Wow.
was it was horrible.
So, like what you were just mentioning with the like, we wanted to find out what the four Jedi did, and
Mm.
in my head from last week, that was what was like keeping me enticed. Like,
Yep.
what did these Jedi do that was so
Yep.
horrific that they deserve to be killed. Whereas
Yep.
now I'm kind of like from this episode, I got the vibe that it's like May's just thinking, oh, they took my sister away from me. Like that's
Yeah.
boring.
Yeah, it's
That's
such a
that's
generic.
no, don't do that to me. So I really hope that there's more to this and the Jedi did actually murder the witches because that builds more on Osha and Sol's relationship.
Mm.
I mean, I'm still not convinced Sol's not the baddie, but
Well,
like
he obviously was like contributing to the
he
deaths of the Jedi.
was.
Like
He
he's lying
was.
to her already. Like all of them are. However, I don't know. It was such a weird vibe. Like I don't want to rag on like child actors, but we've had some good child actors
Yeah,
in
they weren't great.
anything, and it's like the Princess Leia situation again. Like when they were trying to bicker and fight earlier on in the episode, I was like, "There's no way this got finalized." I was like, "There's no way." Calm. Something cool will happen. We'll get nah, nah. Okay, something cool will happen soon. Hopefully, nah, nah. Oh my gosh, what is this episode? It just ended, and I was like, this is what I was like. I was in shock, in for the wrong reasons. Honestly.
Okay. I got faked out on the ending twice. I thought it was gonna end after that last shot of the fire on Brenda,
Yep. Yep.
and then they cut to black, and then they cut to Osha inside the ship, and then
Yep.
they cut to black, and
Cut to
then they
black.
cut to
Mm.
May, and then they cut to black.
Cut to
It was
black.
so
It's
weird.
they have very weird. I would like to say the pacing wasn't the worst on this
No, it
episode.
was fine.
I think it was just bad for the reason that the plot and the whole start to finish wasn't that interesting. Like, this is what I'm saying. I really could not care. Like, so a lot of people online are already getting angry about having, what's it called? These female witches and a female centric thing, female, they just throw that word around all the time now. And they're saying that's the reason why it was bad or that they don't like it. That is appalling. That is not the reason why this episode was bad. I love the Night Sisters and I love the witches of them and everything of Dathomir. However, this could have been a great episode if they were just interesting and gave them different character moments and beats that we haven't seen from Star Wars before. It was like we're just getting a worse version of the Witches of Dathomir. And even the twin storyline is just like, oh, they're kind of a dyad, they're created within the Force or the witches. But like we've already got that with Anakin and other cool characters. Why is there no creativity in it? You know what I mean? Even if it was
Yeah.
bad, why not have something vastly different? And it would be different at least, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do agree. I feel like with the Night Sisters, it's a little bit different, just because this is the first time we've seen this. We don't even have a name for them. Let's just call them the Coven of
Coven
Witches
of
or whatever.
Witches.
Yeah, Force Witches. Whereas with the Night Sisters, they got so developed in the Clone Wars and even in Ahsoka. So we've had that time with them. So I feel like maybe if we got more time, I know no one would want to see that, but if we had more time and got to kind of go into what their powers are and where like what they originate from and what sort of sorcery they get up to, then yeah, they might be a bit more
True.
interesting.
But it also, I can't keep forgetting when the actress is like, oh, what's good about your character? Oh, she's a powerful leader. And then when I was watching that whole episode, I was like, honestly, if I was the actress too, or actor, whatever you want to say, I was like, I don't know what to say either. I guess it is a powerful leader because what the hell do you actually do? Like,
Yeah.
what? You have the Force, yet if all these people had the Force and they just got absolutely obliterated by the Jedi, come on, like, no, you must be really weak in it then. And
Mm,
or their weaponry actually looked pretty cool. Their bow and arrow, their
yeah.
bow and their staff thing looked really cool. And some of the witches themselves, like even the what's her name? The other mother who was very much in
Uh,
argument with
Toro? No, not Toril.
Toll,
Can't.
Tell.
Anyway,
I don't know. She had a really cool design. Looked really good. Like makeup and everything looked really cool. I was like, that's a cool looking design. And they had a lot of even like the base building itself where we see it on fire after where it was a really cool, unique setting and stuff. Like there are little nitpick takeaways. However, the overall episode and story arc itself was just really bad. I was like, there's no way they were like, yeah, this is going to be a good, captivating third episode after a dual premiere. I was like, oh. And in hindsight, that made episode two for me be a lot more higher up. You know what I mean?
I
I'm
agree.
like, geez, that made those two episodes look perfect. And in my opinion, they're not. But like compared to this one, oof. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I agree, and obviously, given that you gave it such a low rating last week, that
Now in
made sense.
hindsight, yeah.
I kind of would say, I mean, I gave it such a high rating last week, so you can't really improve on that. But anyway, um, I want to ask you a couple things because noticed some little Easter eggs in this
Okay.
episode, and I want to see if you noticed them as well. First
Mm.
of all, did you catch the bunta tree?
Yep.
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 Remind you
Mhm.
of anything?
Not really, to be honest. What
I've
was
heard it before. The Bunta Eve Classic, the
That's the
pod
one.
race.
Yep. The pod race. But I'm like,
Yep.
does that have anything to do with that?
I don't know. I don't
It's
know.
reuse the name for a funny gag, I guess, maybe.
Yep. Um, Spice creams. What do you
Spice
think of spice
Cranes.
cream? Do you reckon it's the same ones we saw from the Mandalorian
I'm assuming.
episode? The
Yeah.
spice creams.
Yep. The
That was so
creams. Yep.
funny. Yep.
Yep.
And did you catch the little sneaky loth cat?
No, I didn't. Where was
Preview?
this?
When they were on the ship, they were
At
when
the
May was
end?
no Osha was on the ship with Sol and Indara, and um Osha's trying to
Oh,
guess, and she says
training.
a starship or a spaceship,
And
and
it
it's
was
got a loth cat on the screen. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I did. Yep. Now that you mention that, yep.
I
That's
gotta say,
true.
just quickly before
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like continue, I was so shocked for like 2 seconds when I saw that because when Osha said spaceship and Sol said correct, I'm like, holy moly,
He's
this is
smart.
corruption. This we're seeing firsthand
Oh
corruption
no.
right here.
Oh
And
no,
then
no.
they kind of like
No, he's
Sol
smart.
could read into it, but I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my God, is
They
this
see
happening? Are they
no,
being hypocrites?
no,
I was
see, I
yeah.
I was the opposite. I was like, damn, Soul had that little brief kind of you knew that wasn't a spaceship. And then he's making
It
sure and then caught her out. That was smart. That was a cool little. I think
was
I
yeah.
really like Master Soul.
Yeah,
I think
he's
he's probably the only reason why he might keep me in this show. I'm like, yeah, I'm rooting for Soul so much. And then if he goes evil, I'm still rooting for him
yeah.
because I love him. He's great. And I always
And
yeah, it's just a great, great vibe for the whole show, to be honest.
yeah, he's kind of embodies, like you said it last week, I think, Qui-Gon, he kind of is that Qui-Gon spirit. He embodies the Jedi,
He
or the good
said
of the
he took
Jedi.
inspiration from him too, though.
Yeah. Which is
So I'm
good. That's
like,
what you want.
which is amazing. I was like, that's what we should be doing. But I don't know. Overall, I don't want to be like, yeah, overall, my thoughts are like, I don't want to hate on it because I'm still very excited for the future when some people after this one might just be like, yep, nah, that's me done. I'm out.
Yep.
No more Disney, no more Star Wars, no more, no, I'm still going to watch everything and I'm still excited actually for the future of this. However, when watching this, I was like, this is appalling. I was like, this is really bad. And I'm like, this is not good
Mm,
because this is going to make Star Wars people in general just either if you say you like it, you're just a Disney shill, and if you say you hate it, then you're just grouped into like all the other real toxic haters. Like,
yep.
no, I'm not saying I don't like this episode. However, I'm also not being as toxic to the point where I'm like, Disney stinks. Oh, we hate this, we hate that. No, it's just a bad episode. You can say that it's a bad episode or you didn't like the episode, like, but then you don't have to take it as far to be like just be toxic for no reason.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So yeah.
Um, I don't really have anything else to say on episode 3. Do you?
Honestly, no, this is the issue. Like, what actually happened in those
Yeah,
40
not a
minutes?
lot.
Like, they had some cool scenes. Costumes were sometimes cool. In the end, we didn't even get the full story of what actually happened because they cut away from it. So I was like, well, it's still leaving it upended, kind of,
Mm-hmm.
open ended. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I mean, we kind of assumed it was going to be a situation like where what kind of happened where they get separated and Master Soul apparently sees the death of, May. It was all kind of like what we already knew
Yeah.
also not as good and
Yeah.
not as like even the like they always showed that trailer shot of Torben getting like what's it called possessed or I guess you would say
Yeah,
but then
possessed. Yeah,
nothing
yeah.
that was nothing in the
That
end.
was nothing,
I
which
was
is
like
a
they're
shame.
just making this so like uncool, like they're
Yeah.
making themselves look less exciting,
The
and that's what's
trailer
annoying
looked
me.
better than what the show has been so far.
Yes, exactly, and that's what's infuriating me. This could be a top tier show but it's just not reaching that height yet for me at
Yeah.
all. So I'm like, I'm very disappointed, but very excited still at the same time, which is a weird feeling to have.
Well, okay, so here's what we know. We've seen pretty much everything from the trailers in these first 3 episodes.
No, aside from the forest bits. Yeah.
That's going to come next episode, I'm almost positive, because we know
Guaranteed.
that the Jedi are heading to Kofar,
Kalnaka.
and we're going to see Cal Naka, who has probably done a similar thing to Osha and left the Jedi Order
Mm-hmm.
because he wasn't wearing his robes
Yep.
and didn't flash his lightsaber. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're going to get our fight with the Sith, which will be
Sith
interesting, and it'll be
or
interesting to see how Osha and May fall into that fight as well.
Well, then after episode 4, we're basically blind from everything.
That's
Even,
it.
well, I guess that's also why the trailer showed up to episode 4 would make sense because all early reviewers only got up to episode 4 too.
Mm,
So from then onwards, we're all blind just like everyone else, which is exciting but also very scary. Very,
yeah,
very scary. So
yeah.
yeah.
Look, I think at the end of the day, I knowing that that's coming next week, like it's going to be painful to wait another
Yeah.
week.
Be
But
exciting to
I
see.
feel like if I had known that this was going to come this week, I would have been like, why didn't we just get this earlier? Like, I wouldn't have been excited to wait for
Or
this
just cut
episode.
this one a bit shorter and get us back to present day, but
Yeah,
tease us for the looming fight stuff or anything. I thought it was actually before even knowing what this episode was. I did think it was going to end with them arriving on Kalnaka, like that. That overhead shot
yep,
on the forest where all
yep.
them standing. Yeah, I thought it was going to end something like that, and I'm like, oh, that'll be all right, but no.
I think they're heading back to Coruscant, and then they've obviously. I feel like there's a shot in the trailer of Jackie, the Padawan,
Mm.
training, like spinning around her stick or something. So I feel like they'll probably spend a little bit of time on Coruscant, and then they'll get a big band of Jedi together and go to Kofar.
But are they going to go back to Coruscant, or are they going to just disobey
Oh
all?
yeah, good point. Good
But I
point.
didn't know who was.
Hmm.
I know you're right though. They have to because I thought it was only them same people. But we saw that weird Plo Koon looking fella or fella.
Unless
Lady.
they are Jedi from the
Uh,
temple on Olega,
yeah,
the one that you
true.
love so much.
Yeah, not at all. But yeah, you're right. So it could be either or. They disobey or they go back and then get abandoned and go again. So
Yeah.
yeah, we never know. Mm.
I'll ask you one more question before we finish
Yeah,
up. How would you describe this episode in one word?
that's rough. One word.
Yeah,
Well,
one word.
I could do 2 words.
Okay, go two words.
Horrible flashbacks.
Horrible flashbacks.
If
Okay.
I just said flashbacks, that could actually be interesting. But I was like, no, this is horrible.
Yeah, okay. Fair
What's
enough.
yours?
Um, I'm gonna kind of be a little bit hypocritical here, but I'm also gonna do it in the style of the titles. I'm gonna go interesting slash boring
What?
because that's what it was.
Well, if we're doing in the title one, it'll go boring, useless.
Boring, useless. Oh,
Ladies and
that's funny.
gentlemen, we found the title of our podcast.
That's it. Oh, that's gotta be it. That's gotta
Uh,
be it.
just a hyphen, just a slash.
Slash. That's
Yeah,
it.
that's great.
Alrighty. That'll do us for this week. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week for episode 4. Hopefully with a better episode.
Hopefully, hopefully.
All right. See you guys.
Catches.